So now we're gonna add some roles and features to our Windows server. So some of the roles and features that we're gonna be installing in our Windows 2008 servers is file services, web services, DNS, ADDS, which is Active Directory Domain Services, and DHCP, which is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So don't worry about what all of this mean. As I said earlier in the video, all of these are just to control our domain. So the DNS is for domain name resolution, and the Active Directory Domain Services is just basically the head of the domain. So you guys could just do some research on that if you want a more in-depth knowledge of it. Yeah. So those are some of the stuff that we're going to be installing on our Windows 8 server. So let's get into it. The first role that we're going to be installing is our DNS Server Role. We're going to use all default settings here. So you could just click Next all the way through until it installs. The DNS Server Role is basically for domain name resolutions. If you have a name, say for instance google.com, to translate the name google.com, for example, into an address that is routable into an IP address, for instance, that's where the DNS server comes in. It will translate the name, for instance, the domain name Google, into an IP address. So that's basically what the DNS server is used for. Successfully installed now, so you could go ahead and close the window. Now, the other role that we're going to be installing is our DHCP role. So the DHCP will issue the IP address to all the hosts that are on the domain. The hosts that we have right now are our Metasploitable 2 and our Windows machines. Those machines will get their IP address from this Windows 2008 server once we configure the DHCP role. So we could just click Next all the way through and install all the default settings. We're gonna have to set the scope. So the scope, first we're gonna give it a domain name. So we're just gonna call it weblab.local. So that will be our domain name. Then click Next, Next again. So this is where we're gonna be adding our scope. The scope is basically telling the DHCP server where to start the IP address and where to stop. So we can only get 255 hosts out of this IP address. So we're gonna call our scope lab, and we're gonna start our IP address at 100. That's 192.168.66.100, and end our IP address at 192.168.66.150. And remember that our default gateway will always be 192.168.66.1. That's the exit of our network. So once that is complete, we just click OK and continue. Then we're gonna click Next. Click Next. We're just gonna add WebLab Ipv6 as our Ipv6 DNS name. Then click Next. Then we're gonna click Install to install the DHCP server. So now it's successfully installed, so we could just close this. We're just gonna do a quick restart of our Windows Server machine. So just navigate to where it says to restart, and then you have to click a planned restart. You could add the reason in the comment section of why you're restarting the server. If you don't put a reason there, then it won't allow you to restart the server. So I'm just going to write planned and click OK. As you can see, the server is shutting down and restarting now. So just give it a moment and then it'll boot right back up. So now that it's loaded, we're gonna just go over to our Windows machine and check if it's we're gonna check if our Windows machines are getting their IP address from our DHCP server that we just configured a while ago. So just type in CMD to bring up the control panel, and then we're gonna click. Then we're gonna type ipconfig in our control panel. As you can see here, it's getting its IP address from the server, the DHCP server that we just configured a while ago. So remember, we started our scope of issuing IP addresses from 192.168.66.100. So this machine has IP address 100. Let's go over to our other machine and then we'll see what's the address for that one. So we're just going to do the same thing. Go to our control panel and type ipconfig. And as we can see here, this Windows machine has IP address 192.168.66.101. So it's working fine. Our server is issuing the IP addresses to the hosts that are on our network.